I wanted to share, as I was thinking about this past week, I thought there is a unique parallel, right, between myself and these guys here, and between the relationship I have with these two guys and the cooperation I have with these two guys, and parallel in my relationship with Christ. And that's what I want to get into and share. But in doing so, I was thinking of, there's a way that things work. There's a really unique design that God has established in the horse. And I think it's fascinating. And, whenever I drive my team around my horses, it's like Christmas morning to me. I just can't get enough of them. And just ask my family, right? And I really enjoyed the interactive relationship I have with this team. And the three of us together is what we call a team. Now, when they're out by themselves, there's a hierarchy and, Rex is the top dog. But when I'm around, I'm it. I'm the top dog. But in being the top dog, I provide for all their needs, okay? So, Rocky and Rex, I introduced them several times. And the interesting thing is, the more we work together, the better we work together. And there's a fascinating thing about the horse. The more you work them, the better they are. And the better they are, the more you work them. It's like anything else, right? In your trades, in your careers, the more you do it, the better you get. It might not be as enjoyable as working a team of horses, but I think it's pretty cool. So the uniqueness in the horse. Winston Churchill, although a lot of people contribute this statement to him, it's not necessarily was his statement, but he mentioned there's something about the outside of a horse that's good for the inside of a man. Now, I love my dog. I love the canine. And there's a unique relationship. I have this little border collie, Sue. She lays by my bed at night. We have a really unique relationship. When we have a lot of dogs, you can be invited into the pack of dogs as long as you're the alpha. And when you have a herd of horses, it's a little different because they're not as willing to let you in. Okay? These two guys would rather be by themselves than with me and them two together. They really would. But when I'm with them, they just take it and, they follow through. Real quick. The beautiful thing I love about the horse is their design, right? So how does this wagon get pulled? Okay? Look how this design is. We have these big old shoulders here, right? These big old shoulders. And then we figured years ago, man, we can put a collar over them shoulders. And in putting a big old collar over their shoulders, then we could attach to this collar these traces. And these traces go right down to the vehicle and they pull or push the power. So the draft horse isn't necessarily pulling apart. It's pushing. This is pushing right into his collar. Well, the fascinating thing about that, we were just talking about some weights over there, Jennifer and I. If I had like 25 people on the wagon, okay, that might be an average about 3,700 pounds, okay? And then the wagon's like 1,500 pounds. So these guys they can pull easily 5,200, 5,500 pounds through the field with a wagon with people. It's not a big deal. But if I overloaded them, if the laden weight of that wagon is over what they're capable of, now we run into trouble, okay? Like my truck over there. That truck and the Pennsylvania registration card, there's an unladen load and a laden load. Unladen, about 600 to 700 pounds, but anyhow, it's designed to hold maximum of 13,000 pounds, 300 pounds, right? 1,300. It's designed for that. The brake system, frame, transmission, it's designed to carry that capacity. Go over that capacity, if you get pulled over, not only will you get a ticket, but the situation becomes dangerous because the brake system and the frame and all, it's not designed to handle that load. So the laden weight is the maximum weight that thing can handle. The laden weight for these horses, it varies. Are you pulling a big log through the woods? Is the ground frozen? Is the ground muddy? It all varies, but there's a limit. If we overload these horses, they will eventually start breaking down because they're not designed to carry that weight. And the fascinating thing is, we are designed as well to carry only so much of a load. In that, one time Jesus was talking to a group of people in Matthew, and he was telling these people, and sure, there's probably some stressed out individuals in the crowd. He says, "Come to me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest, and I will give you peace." In that, when we go and try to do life of and by ourselves, the human being was not designed to go and do things of and by ourselves. You see, there's a situation in an issue that comes into play with this whole thing. Jesus says, "Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you life." We can, as human beings, become overwhelmed with the storms of life, especially when we go and try to do them and navigate through them ourselves, because we weren't designed that way. We were designed to have an incredible, unique, intimate relationship with our God, and He designed us so that we would be dependent upon Him, and then we would naturally live life in a balanced way. But the problem was, way back when, the first family that God ever created, there was an issue. They thought they could do it better themselves. You know, why is God holding out on us? I think we can be independent and do it up and by ourselves. And what happened was, the dependence on God was broken off. And what we would call that is pride and sin came into the picture. And because of pride and sin coming into the picture, it separated the relationship between human and the eternal God. Now there was an issue. Now there was something that needed to be taken care of. Now man was on his own. And if I would take this team and I would unharness them and truck them out to Montana and put them up in the mountains, would they do okay? They do well for a couple seasons perhaps, but their feet would get long, their teeth would get sharp, they wouldn't be able to chew correctly, the digestive system wouldn't work correctly, they wouldn't get the proper nutrients because they're on their own. They would go through storms. 50 below, driving wind, driving rain and snow, it would eventually break them down. And as they would try to dig through the snow and try to get the proper nutrients that their body needs, they would survive for a while, but they'd start getting broken down until they wouldn't be able to get away from the predation that surrounded them, and they would be taken out. But with an individual, horseman or someone like myself, has a team like this, has the proper housing, gives them the proper nutrition, rotates them from field to field so they don't get a parasite load, has their feet trimmed every 8-10 weeks, has their teeth loaded, and all the vaccines they need for the year, they are being maintained. Why? Because they're under my care. They're under my supervision. And these animals, to me, are valuable, so valuable. Not only as a working partner, but also as a relationship situation as well. I mean, look how, wow, Rocky's not really that, Rocky really doesn't like people that much. You're doing a good job, Ed. And this is the guy that's real gregarious over here. He's really, but
we've come to an understanding.
You come to an understanding. Well, I appreciate that. When we try to do life of and by ourselves, we get away from the original design. We get away from that design that God has established from the get-go. We think we can be independent, do things of and by ourselves, and we're in the situation that we want to choose, and we think we have a freedom, and we live in a state that there's sin involved, and there's a disobedience from God because we don't want to miss out. We don't want to not have that experience, and we think, I'm going to miss out if I don't do this. I'm going to miss out on this experience, and I'm just going to do it regardless. But there is a situation which is called sin, and that separates from us from our eternal God. And now there's a problem. But the beautiful thing is, one time Jesus stood up in the temple in Jerusalem, and he stood up and he was reading from a scroll which they had back then from a passage in Isaiah. And the passage said, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He had sent me, Jesus says he'd sent me, personally me, to proclaim freedom to the prisoners and to recover sight for the blind and to release the oppressed from sin. See, Jesus Christ said, I'm here. I'm here because of the sin problem. I'm here because of the disobedient issue. I'm here to help you navigate through that storm. And then you will have the proper husbandry from me, and I will give you rest. The fascinating thing is, Christ always invites us to himself. He takes care of the situation of sin. He takes care of the disobedience. He draws us to himself. And then at that point, we can start living a life that we were designed to live in. It's such a fascinating thing. Jesus says, or one of the psalmists says this, two things in Psalms, okay, that I want to read to you. Blessed is he whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man whose sin the Lord does not count against him. Can you imagine? Blessed is the man whose sin does not count against him. And that's solely because of the work of the cross and what Jesus Christ has accomplished. Psalms 31. The psalmist says this, thousands of years ago, he penned these words. I will be glad and rejoice in your love, for you saw my affliction and you knew the anguish of my soul. God understands the reality of life with us, or those at times, and us included at times, that don't go through the storms with his guidance and counsel and direction. We try to get through that whiteout snowstorm by ourselves, and we often falter and we get lost. And you know the storms out in the Midwest. We hear about them storms. And they tie the rope from the barn to the house. And there's been those who've gone out and into that whiteout storm without the rope. And their loved ones don't find them for months later, right? Because they got lost from that 50 feet because of the whiteout. Only in and through Jesus Christ can we navigate this life correctly. And only in and through Jesus Christ can our sins be forgiven because of the work of the cross. And he so desires us to be engaged in that world with him. And he invites us to do this as well. Okay? Well, I just wanted to share some of them parallels.